All right, everybody, so we are back for step 3. So the first step was to draw our prickly pear cactus and trace it with a Sharpie. The second step was to paint the whole background. You could pick whatever color you wanted as long as it wasn't green, white, or black. Now we're going to come back with black and white paint. So we are going to add value to this section down here, our pot. Value, remember, means the light and darkness of a color. So we're just going to use two colors, black and white, to create a nice gray pot that goes from light to medium to dark. So the first thing that I want to do is start on the light side. I'm using a small brush, and I'm going to start with white paint. I want to start on the light side because it's easier to make a picture darker than it is to make it lighter afterwards. So I'm going to add my white paint in the first section here, and I'm actually going to do the first two down here as well. All right, I'm going to rinse off my brush and my water cup, wipe the water on the side of the cup or dab it with a paper towel, and then come back with my black. I want to use a very tiny bit of black because I want this to be a very, very light gray. I want to make sure that I rub it all the way in with the wet white paint. Paint will mix if they're both wet, but if one of them's dry, because I was talking to my friend, then it is going to be much, much harder to mix those colors together. So make sure that you are working quickly and efficiently. All right, so now I have a nice light gray here. I come down here. You can add more white if it is starting to get too dry. And we should end up with a nice light gray. This is the highlight of our pot. The light source is coming from over here. It's making this part of my pot lighter, and then it'll get medium and then dark. So the next step, I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to make sure I rinse off my brush. I dab it off with the side of the cup or paper towel, and I'm going to paint this section white too. This section's bigger. I'm going to need a little bit more paint, and I'm just going to do one section at a time because I don't want the paint to dry by the time that I move on to the bottom. All right, rinse off your brush, wipe it on the side of the cup, dab it on a paper towel, come back with more black paint. So last time I added just a tiny bit. This time I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to cover up most of the brush. I'm not scooping it like a chip with salsa, but I'm just dabbing it in and pulling it straight back out. I'm going to cover this middle section here. Just like with our background, we're going to try to make all of our brush strokes eventually go in the same direction, but right now, let's just cover everything and stay inside the lines. And then we can come back and smooth it out when we are done. So I don't want this to look black. I want it to look like a mid-tone, a medium gray. All right. So I'm making all my brush strokes go up and down because that's what they did on the other side. Here, you can kind of emphasize the top and the bottom a little bit more. And now I'm going to move on to the bottom. I can take some of my extra paint and put it down here because it's the same color. But if I need more, I'm going to rinse off my brush, dab it off, come back with white paint, cover in the whole area with white. And then just repeat what I did on the top. Rinse off my brush, wipe it on the side of the cup, dab it on a paper towel, dip it most of the way in black, and then come back. My pot has nice straight edges, so I want to make sure that I follow those straight edges. Okay, now that everything's in there, I can start to make all my brush strokes go the same direction now that everything's covered. This way I have nice, neat craftsmanship. Okay. All right. Now the next one, I'm going to rinse off my brush. And I'm just going to come back with either a darker gray or straight black paint. I like to do a dark gray. So I'm going to come back with some white. This section's pretty small, so I can put it in both the top and the bottom. Here. Rinse off your brush, wipe it off, dab it off, and then come back with a lot of black paint. So now I am going to scoop like a chip with salsa. Be careful that you don't get it on the rest of your picture. I'm going to come back, put a bunch of black in here, put some black in here. And I want this to either look almost black or like super, super dark gray. It has to be darker than this. All right, now let's do the top. All right, so now I have a bunch of extra paint here and it doesn't look that much darker. So what I'm going to do is rinse out my brush, get all of that gray off my brush. Even if it looks black, I bet you there's some white in there. Now I'm going to dip it back in black again, and I'm going to add more black. This is what I mean by saying that it's easier to make something darker than it is lighter. I would not be able to lighten this up with more white paint. It would take a ton of white paint. And instead of wasting that resource, I'm just going to come back with black paint and make this edge darker. All right, now we have 2 more tiny parts to do with just black paint, okay? And that is the inside of our pot here that shows through our plant. Our pot is 3D. That's why it has 3 different values, because it's curved all the way around. So this convex side, it pops out, is going to have to be painted black. So it looks like it's all in shadow or it has soil on the inside. Make sure that I paint this part nice and neatly because it's just black around my cactus. Perfect. All right, and we're all done with the pot.